Meet Red, an ugly low-life simp who was kicked off the army for being a weakling and now has to live in a far-flung village, and Fap, remembering thick thighs of the hot waifus back in the palace he will never touch in life. It had been 3 rough years since the Demon Lord stormed through Avalon, and by now half the continent was already under his grip. Still, the gods hadn't pulled the plug just yet. Out on the battlefield, a monster came charging, but the hero on the field smacked it aside like it was light work. Soon her crew rolled in, and together they dropped the beast without even breaking a sweat. That hero was Ruti, a girl straight up blessed by the gods themselves. Meanwhile, Red was living a whole different life. He was out there grinding herbs, patching wounds, and cooking mushrooms into medicine. For him, the day's haul was enough. He explained that this was Zoltan, a slow little borderland where progress barely crawled. The lords had given up on it, so only drifters, crooks, monks, and misfits stuck around. Red strolled into the Adventurers Guild, dropped his herbs off, and got the usual polite nod from the receptionist. Of course, some adventurers nearby had to run their mouths, clowning him for wasting time on plants instead of swinging his bronze sword. One guy even bragged that he barely touched his own sword, carrying it just for looks. Red didn't bite. He just said fighting wasn't his lane. His dream was to open his own apothecary. Later outside, Red admitted to himself he was still short on cash for that shop. Then he bumped into a kid named Tanta, hustling food deliveries for his dad and grandpa. Red hyped him up, and the boy puffed out his chest, saying he wanted to be a carpenter and build Red's shop one day. When Tanta asked about Red's blessing, Red sidestepped the question and told him to hurry home before the food went cold. Red explained how everyone carried a blessing from the gods. Blessings decided people's paths. Warriors got strength, mages got magic, and so on. But his own blessing? That was complicated. He remembered when Ares, a mage in Ruti's party, called him out. In a flashback, Ares set up a barrier and told Red to break it. Red tried, failed, and stood there embarrassed. Ares cut him down with words, saying Red was dead weight. A real comrade fought side by side, but Red only slowed the party down. Worse, Ruti had to keep saving him, and that made him a burden. Ares admitted Red had his moments, but while everyone else leveled up, Red stayed stuck. Effort didn't matter if the results never changed. So, Red tapped out. He agreed to leave, said he'd watch the demon army, and promised never to return. Ares stripped him of party gear and sent him packing. From there, he drifted to Zoltan, ditched his old name, and started fresh as Red. Deep down, he still worried about Ruti, but he knew she didn't need him anymore. Now, tucked away in Zoltan, he could finally chase something simple: peace, herbs, and no more near-death battles. The next morning, Red was back in the woods collecting herbs. His blessing didn't give him flashy powers, but he had survival skills on lock. He could move through forests, dodge trouble, and keep himself alive. Out of nowhere, an owlbear rushed him. Red didn't fight. He just climbed a tree and let the beast roar. He reminded himself that he wasn't in the hero squad anymore, and that fight-or-die life was behind him. When he returned to town, the guild staff and some adventurers looked worried, thinking he might have been hurt. Among them was Albert, a cocky B-rank adventurer who demanded Red call him Sir. Albert wanted Red to guide them, since an owlbear was loose. Red shrugged it off, saying he wasn't interested. Albert pushed harder, calling it Red's big chance to climb the ladder, but Red shut him down. His only ladder was the one leading to a quiet shop. Albert stormed off, salty. The receptionist gently said she wished Red had agreed, since it would help the town and maybe prove he was more than just a herb picker. Red stayed firm. He didn't want the spotlight, the battles, or the applause. Meanwhile, far away on the front lines, Ruti kept fighting non-stop. Back in Zoltan, Red stayed on his grind, brewing potions and counting coins. At this pace, he figured it'd take half a year to save enough for his shop. One day, Gons came rushing in, panicked. His grandson Tanta had collapsed with a fever. The doctor said the boy's eyes had gone pale. Red bolted to their home, where the family was drowning in worry. He checked Tanta and saw sores in his mouth, swelling in his throat, and a burning fever. This wasn't normal. Red asked when the fever started. The doctor said around 3 in the afternoon. Red warned that if the boy didn't get the right herbs in 24 hours, he could lose his sight. The doctor admitted goblin fever and the white epidemic were spreading with no cure. Red noted they had cocoa leaves, but what they lacked were blue needles, herbs that grew deep in the mountains. Gons begged him to go, offering anything to save his grandson. Red hesitated, since the guild banned adventurers from going beyond the safe zone. Getting caught meant being banned for life, but rules didn't matter now. He agreed, not as an adventurer, but as a friend. He asked the doctor to keep Tanta stable and set off for the mountains. Relying on his endurance and speed, Red sprinted through the terrain. But soon, he smelled smoke. Flames had swallowed the forest, the same place where blue needles grew. Red cursed, realizing Albert's crew had set the fire. He admitted that if it had been Ruti or Ares, they would have stopped the flames with ease, but he didn't have that kind of power. Then, as if things weren't bad enough, an owlbear ambushed him. Red fought dirty, scraped by with risky moves, and barely made it out alive. He injured the beast, but had to retreat. Later, Albert's party stumbled on the scene, found the owlbear dead, and their guide puffed his chest, demanding a fat reward. Albert felt uneasy, but left before their resistance magic wore off. Red finally came back to town with the blue needles. The doctor said if Red had been late, Tanta could have lost more than his health. He could have lost his future. Thanks to Red's medicine, the boy survived. Tanta's mother apologized for the risk, while Gons cursed Albert for burning half the herbs to ash. The doctor told Red that once he opened his shop, he'd have more work than he could handle. Later, Red sat and reflected. This was the edge of his blessing, the ceiling he couldn't break. That's why he left the hero's party. Sure, he had polished his survival skills until they shined, but this was his limit. And honestly, for him, this quiet road was the only one worth walking. Not long after, Gons showed up again, grateful. He said Red hadn't just saved Tanta, but their whole family. Red waved it off, acting like it was nothing, but Gons insisted it was huge. Red reminded him of his promise, to help build his shop. Gons grinned and agreed, and Red admitted that this was the one thing he truly needed. The next day, a new adventurer walked into the guild. She chatted with the receptionist, who was dressed sharper than usual. When asked why, the receptionist said she was invited to a celebration. Curious, the adventurer asked who by. The answer: Red. He had finally built his shop and was about to open it. The receptionist spoke highly of him, his charm, his skill, his kindness, and said the whole town admired him. She even believed Red was far more capable than he thought. Hearing that, the adventurer grew excited to finally meet him. That evening, the celebration kicked off. The whole town showed up, laughter and drinks filling the air. Gons walked over, smiling, and asked Red what his real dream was. Red just smiled back and said his dream was already alive. Now all he wanted was peace, tea in his cup, and good friends by his side. Rain poured hard outside, while Red sat alone in his small shop, waiting and worrying. For if no customers came soon, all those herbs and medicines would rot away. And since the people of Zoltan weren't about to leave their cozy homes during such a storm, business stayed dead quiet. Then, the door creaked open, and a guest stepped in. Red looked up, and to his surprise, it was Rit, who smiled warmly, a little surprised herself, as she admitted it really was him, while Red recognized her instantly. They sat down for tea, the mood soft, yet carrying a faint heaviness, and as they sipped, Rit mentioned it had been ages since they last crossed paths, while Red explained that around here, people only knew him as Red, to which Rit responded with disbelief, confessing she never thought she'd meet him again like this. He then narrated for us who she truly was. Princess Rit, the second princess of the kingdom, with considerable military might. Curious, Red asked why someone of her stature was hiding away in Zoltan as an adventurer, and Rit explained that her country had wanted her on the throne instead of anyone else. However, since she had no taste for politics or royal games, she abandoned the crown to chase freedom instead. With a playful smirk, she joked that their names, Red and Rit, sounded similar, and though Red shrugged it off, Rit blushed, admitting she still remembered him as a comrade, even if only for a short while. When she asked what he was doing here, Red told her everything, including how he left the hero's party, and although Rit didn't like hearing him call himself a liability, she reminded him that many of their victories had been possible only because of his guidance. Still, Red stayed stubborn, insisting he would have slowed them down, while Rit pushed back, pointing out they had defeated Indal, one of the 4 celestial kings, and openly wondered how Ruti and the rest were surviving without him. The air turned warm and nostalgic as Red brewed fresh tea, quietly thinking of his sister Ruti while pouring, and Rit, after sipping, smiled and said it was wonderful, though Red brushed off the compliment, claiming he hadn't mastered his blessing yet. Rit teased him gently, suggesting maybe it tasted better simply because it was made for her. What followed was a flashback. Years ago, Red had first met Rit in a border town during a campaign with the Hero's Party, while in the present, the Hero's Party gathered in a tavern where Theodora the Mage warned of enemies gathering in the west. Just then, a thug picked the wrong fight with a girl, none other than Albert's shady old guide, but the girl, far from ordinary, flipped him onto the floor and pressed a knife to his throat when he attempted fire magic. She warned him sharply that he was messing with the wrong woman, and he fled humiliated, leaving nobles nearby whispering about her identity, the fierce Rit, pride of Lagavia. Back in Zoltan, Red and Rit continued speaking with raw honesty. Red mentioned she had never been good at opening up, just like him, which made their bond feel even more genuine. Another flashback surged in. During the war, Rit's supplies had run dry, and her master advised raiding the Demon Fortress stockpile, yet during the mission, she uncovered the cruel truth. Her real master was dead, replaced by a scientist sorcerer who stole his face and memories. As goblins swarmed her, the sorcerer mocked that her capture would doom her homeland, until, at that desperate moment, an arrow cut through the chaos, fired by Red, who had followed her, suspicious from the start. Together, they battled the sorcerer, struggling hard, until Hero Ruti herself arrived and ended the fight with ease. Later, as Rit wept for her fallen comrades, Red comforted her, reminding her that it wasn't her fault, and assuring her that what mattered most was their will to fight, their pride, and their hope. He explained that without her, people would only remember the day their royal guards died, but with her, they still had a reason to believe. His words reignited her spirit, and she returned stronger, driving the demon army out of her town. Back in the present, Red invited Rit to join him on errands, yet she shook her head, insisting she'd rather help in his shop, since someone had to keep it running while he gathered herbs. Red then showed her a multiplying potion that could make medicine yields 5 times greater, and Rit's eyes widened, realizing such a discovery could flip the market upside down, though Red laughed, dismissing it as a mere thought since such items were worth millions. Rit teased him again, calling him humble despite his talent. Red also revealed a new painkiller formula, and Rit reminded him it needed council approval before selling, which he agreed to, before shyly asking if she'd work with him at the shop. Rit accepted, and later, when he served her dinner, she praised it with genuine joy, while Red admitted he loved cooking, prompting Rit to grin and say she'd better start waking up early if breakfast was at 7 a.m. Meanwhile, far away, Ares introduced a new girl to the Hero's Party, a girl with a rare blessing worth killing for, who carried a pet named Carolee and was told she would take Gideon's place. Iris grumbled, annoyed at the added burden, and soon the rest introduced themselves: Dan, a warrior with martial arts, and a girl blessed as a crusader. Finally, Ruti stepped forward, and the new girl introduced herself as Tise. Ruti, with authority, made it clear that Tise must follow her command from now on, and once Tise agreed, she set forth their next mission, to retrieve a weapon left behind by the Demon Lord. Red woke up on the floor, and right away, he caught sight of Rit still knocked out on the bed. A minute later, she stretched, yawned, and rolled straight into the kitchen like nothing happened. She cooked up breakfast quick, and Red, still rubbing his neck, asked if she slept well. Rit shook her head and said, nope, she wasn't used to sharing a bed. Red told her it's always hard to crash in a new spot, but Rit cut him off, saying, nah, it ain't that. It's just the whole bed-sharing thing she hadn't gotten used to yet. They sat down to eat, and as soon as she tasted the food, Rit's face lit up. Red smirked a little, telling her the day was stacked. Rit pulled out a list on the spot. First grab bread, then buy paintings for the shop, because according to her, a nice wall pulls in more customers. Red side-eyed the idea, but Rit wasn't backing down. Finally, she reminded him they had to swing by the council for painkiller approval. While munching, Rit slid in a question about her salary. Red kept cool on the outside, but inside, he knew she wasn't here for the paycheck. She was here because she wanted to be, and he could tell she was just dancing around the topic. As they strolled through town, Red broke down why Zoltan stayed chill. No Demon Lord army anywhere near. Rit sighed, saying sometimes the calm felt empty. She even wondered what it would have been like if she had rolled with Ruti and Red back in the Hero Party. Red, deep down, reminded himself that Road was dead to him. Heroes fought wars. He just wanted peace. Soon they dipped into Tom's furniture shop. Without missing a beat, Rit told Tom she needed a bed since she'd be living with Red now. Tom damn near choked, congratulating them like they were married. Red's face burned red, pissed that Tom had never been this nice before. Rit, cool as ever, picked out a double bed. Red tried to be cheap, saying a single would do. Rit waved him off, and Tom promised delivery. Walking out, Rit praised Tom's work. Red explained Tom had a craftsman's blessing, which gave him that natural edge. Rit raised an eyebrow, impressed Red could read blessings like that. He explained blessings weren't about education, but fate. Nobles got stacked blessings, commoners pulled the short end, and leveling up meant fighting and killing. No wonder the world stayed messy with people scrapping just to grow stronger. Down the road, Red spotted Tonta getting roughed up by Redmo. Red stepped in, but the brat tossed a rock at him and sprinted off laughing. Red knelt, patched Tonta and his buddy Alk. Rit asked what the beef was. Tonta explained Redmo told them to clear out. Red knew right away. The kid had Barbarian Brawler, a blessing that gave crazy combat skills, but twisted you reckless. Tanta called it a trash blessing, but Red shook his head. Some blessings just drag people into the mud, he said, but they weren't destiny. Alk then asked about his own blessing, and Red told him straight. It was weapon mastery, meaning he could handle any blade or spear thrown at him. Rit comforted him, saying she knew how heavy blessings could feel too. She was born royal, chained to palace life, but she cut loose for freedom. Red told both boys blessings weren't shackles. They were just part of you, not the whole story. He told them his shop was always open if they needed help. Later, he and Rit dragged their medicine to the council. At first, some officer brushed them off, acting all high and mighty. But the head official later pulled them aside, apologized, and explained the council was burned before by a crook who turned medicine into a black market mess. Still, he said Red and Rit seemed real, and so he gave them the green light. Outside, Red muttered an apology for dragging Rit into drama. Rit just grinned, saying she was glad to ride along. Red thought about it. Approval was one thing, but trust took time. Rit smirked, saying what they needed was a hook. So Red hit the kitchen and flipped the medicine into candy, sweet, chewable, and still healing. Next morning, Rit hyped it in the streets. A mom bought some for her kid, and the girl loved it. Just like that, stock vanished by nightfall. That evening, Red told Rit straight up. Without her, none of it would have worked. Rit blushed hard, trying not to smile. Meanwhile, out in the desert, the hero's party was stuck in the mud. Dynan cursed at Ares for leading them in circles. Theodora sighed, saying things were smoother back when Gideon, Red, was running with them. Dynan slammed his fist down, saying kicking him out was the dumbest move they ever made. Red woke up slow, and as his eyes slid over, he saw Rit still asleep beside him. He couldn't help but think how unexpected this life had turned out. Back then, if anyone had asked him about his future, he would have said he'd still be fighting on the front lines against the Demon Lord. Maybe, as second in command, he would have picked up a noble title and lived out his days in some estate. Never did he picture running a small apothecary in Zoltan, with a princess sharing his roof. Rit stretched, greeted him good morning, and casually said her chores were already done. Red smiled and told her they'd have lettuce for lunch. That simple little detail made her light up, because even plain food felt better in this new life. Later, 3 adventurers walked into Red's shop, and their jaws nearly hit the floor when they saw Rit working there. She told them straight up she had quit adventuring and now helped in Red's store. One of them, Maya, couldn't take it. The champion Rit living with Red. She bolted red-faced, with the others running after her. Red just shook his head, thinking people would always be shocked to see someone like Rit settling down in a backwater town. Out of nowhere, Rit said she wanted mead. Red asked why, and she shrugged it off, saying she just felt like it. She went out to grab some, while Red stayed behind planning dinner, bread and cheese stew. That's when Albert barged in. He didn't want medicine. He came with fire in his voice. He accused Red of killing Yarandrala. Red denied it clean, pointing out the wound was from a dull blade, not his. Albert didn't care, pressed his sword to Red's throat, and spat that he once thought of inviting Red to his party, but now saw it as a mistake. Before the tension exploded, Rit walked back inside. Her face turned cold as steel. She told Albert if he touched Red, he wouldn't walk out alive. Albert froze, then backed off quick. Rit rushed over to check Red, who stayed calm and said he was fine. Rit muttered she should have cut Albert down anyway, but Red calmed her, reminding her that arrogant or not, adventurers like Albert still kept Zoltan running. That night, over dinner, they chatted about the new furniture, and for the first time, life together felt real. Rit teased him about the bath being big enough for 2, and Red blushed, laughing it off, though he couldn't hide the heat in his face. Later, Red linked up with Tom and Gons. They joked about Zoltan's heat making folks lazy, and Gon's even collapsed like he was done for. Now scolded Red for teasing too hard. The talk shifted to business. Nobles had opened a flashy new tavern, stealing customers from local shops. Rit suggested they needed something unique to compete. Red dropped an idea: herbal steam baths, an old elven trick for healing sickness. If the tavern offered that, the crowd would come back. They tried it, hanging herbs in the steam room. The aroma filled the air, relaxing and clean. Jackson, the tavern owner, was impressed, thanked Red, and promised to buy potions from him. Later, Red slipped into the steam for a rare breather. Rit and Now joined him, teasing him for trying to hog the piece alone. Red got flustered, but they just smiled. Rit leaned in, praising him: hard-working, kind, reliable, the type she was glad to stand beside. Red turned redder than the steam itself, but deep down, her words hit hard. Next morning, the friendly competition in town kept growing, and that evening, as Red and Rit walked home, she finally explained why she craved mead. In her homeland, at summer weddings, newlyweds drank mead and spent a month together. That memory had sparked the craving. Red chuckled, shook his head, and told her simply to come home. Meanwhile, far away, the heroes' party was in chaos. Without Gideon, nothing clicked. They argued, unable to track down the Demon Lord's weapons. Tise, the new assassin, claimed she was fine following orders, but Theodora cut her off. She said straight, the problem started after Gideon was cast out. She admitted openly, the party needed him. Even the quiet leader, who rarely spoke, couldn't deny it. Red and Rit were setting up their shop, stacking things neatly, when out of nowhere, a crew of mafia-looking guys barged in. Red told them the shop was closed, but one of them, calling himself Galatami, didn't care. He demanded to see Rit right then. Red, staying calm, said the shop would open soon and they could talk later, but Galatami wasn't hearing it. He even dropped hints that he knew all about the adventurer party and their old comrades, making it clear he wasn't walking out easy. Later, Rit brushed them off, telling them she didn't need anyone but Red, but the pressure didn't stop there. Another man showed up, claiming he used to be in This's party. He opened a box, showing Red piles of wealth, promising a life of luxury if he just cut Rit loose. Red didn't even flinch. He told the guy Rit was worth more than anything they could throw at him. After that, more clowns tried their luck. Some waved money, others even proposed marriage, but Rit rejected them all. She said flat out that she had already signed her lifetime contract. She was with Red, and that was final. Hearing her say that, Red pulled out a bracelet and slipped it on her wrist, saying it was a token of their bond. Meanwhile, whispers reached Red's ears that the adventurer party still wanted him back. They didn't want him rotting away in retirement. That made Red think someone might be selling him out for coin, feeding the party information. Then the focus shifted to Rit. She admitted she was honestly happy with Red. After being apart for so long, she never thought she'd get to share her life with him again, and now she was living it for real. Soon, Red's mind drifted back to the old days. He remembered armies of monsters pouring in, the captain of the guards dying on the field, and the desperate run to a neighboring chief for help. To get there, they had to sneak past tight enemy lines, and Red suggested a risky shortcut through the forest. At the edge of the woods, a mysterious woman appeared. She had the blessing of the singing trees, able to speak through the forest itself. She said she could guide them to safety. Red doubted her, but eventually, he gave in and trusted her. She proved her worth, and Rit stepped up, assigning roles. Some guarded the villagers, while the rest pushed deeper into the forest. As they moved, tensions rose. Rit and the others argued about orders, but they pressed forward anyway. When the fighting hit, Rit tore through enemies with raw strength, showing why people called her a true hero. Later, the story cut to Rit traveling alone after refusing to rejoin the party. She wandered through crowded markets until a soldier named Dur stopped her. He recognized her and urged her to go home. Rit shook him off, saying she didn't care about glory. She was happy living her life now, especially with Red by her side. That night, Rit couldn't sleep. The hours felt long and heavy. Meanwhile, another character named Fly sat thinking about Red, saying he had walked away from the party even when they begged him to stay. Rit, overhearing everything, lashed out at Fly, convinced he had hurt Red. She left him badly injured, but when the dust settled, she healed him anyway. Red was at Dr. Newman's clinic, and the old man thanked him for helping restock the shelves. He added, though, that blood needles were nowhere to be found. Red shook his head. saying that this year finding those was close to impossible. Before the talk could stretch, a loud crash echoed from outside. Red rushed to the door, and lying there unconscious was Jackson. Scattered near him was a strange powder. Dr. Newman bent down and recognized it immediately. Starfish grass, a dangerous black market drug. Red, who had pushed his first aid skills to the limit, saw it too, and quickly whipped up an antidote. The doctor administered it, and just like that, Jackson's life was saved. Later that evening, Red and Rit finally made it back home. Rit, arms crossed and stomach rumbling, complained that he came back late. Red apologized, explaining an emergency held him up. As he cooked pasta with tomato sauce, he told her the details, how the drug almost killed Jackson. Rit frowned, realizing how dangerous starfish grass was. Red said the doctor had asked him to prepare more antidotes, since more cases were bound to appear. Rit worried about the criminals behind it, but Red cut it short. Chasing outlaws wasn't their job. To lighten the mood, Red asked if she wanted to go to the river with him, just the two of them. Rit's smile answered before her words. She was in. The next day, they saddled up, rode out, and set up camp by the water. Rit changed into swimwear, and Red nearly lost his composure. They splashed, swam, and later sat with drinks in hand. Rit admitted she had been nervous when she met him again in Zoltan, afraid he might reject her, since back then she tried so hard to catch his attention. Red told her softly he never wanted her to think he was desperate, which is why he held back. Rit leaned closer, smiling, and kissed him. Meanwhile, miles away, the heroes' party was crawling through ancient ruins. They debated whether powerful weapons lay buried there. Tis asked their leader why she never slept. Calmly, she explained her blessing stripped her of basic needs. No sleep, no food, no warmth. She never felt fatigue, but she also admitted that much of her humanity was gone. She couldn't chase Gideon even if she wanted to. The weight of being the hero chained her in place. Back in Zoltan, life moved forward. Rumors spread of the drug-making adventurers stronger. Then chaos broke loose. An injured man stumbled into Red's shop, head bleeding, begging for medicine. Rit dashed outside and found townsfolk under attack. She recognized the assailant, one of Albert's men, but his power was far beyond normal. She fought, cut down 2 attackers, but one slipped away. Albert himself arrived, finishing the last man with his blade. Rit's eyes flared. She told Albert he didn't need to kill them, but he snapped back that one was still alive and had to be taken to the doctor. Before leaving, Rit warned him coldly that every time she wanted to kill him, she held herself back. Albert walked away shaken. Later, Red and Rit sat together and pieced it out. Rit admitted she'd seen that man before, weaker than a rookie, yet now juiced up beyond belief. Red agreed. The drug was twisting blessings, letting people fight in ways that didn't fit them, like wielding strange blades outside their gift. Not long after, Tanta and his friend Yal dropped by the shop. Over lunch, Yal confessed he was lost, unsure how to use his blessing or what path to take. Red gave him steady words. No need to rush. Finding the right weapon or trade would take time. Rit backed him, telling Yal she too once struggled with what her blessing forced on her. Later, Rai, a member of Albert's group, walked in to apologize for her comrades. She admitted Albert had been taking reckless jobs, pushing his team to the edge. Red thought quietly about Albert's blessing. It filled him with confidence, chasing fame and legacy, but he didn't see his limits. Meanwhile, far away, Danan from the hero's crew met a mysterious stranger. The man promised help in searching for Gideon, hinting that their goals aligned. Back at the shop, rain clouds rolled in. Red and Rit enjoyed tea while the storm built. Rit confessed she loved the town, though she wondered aloud how their leader was holding up far away. Red reassured her. She was alive and strong. The thunder cracked, and Red admitted storm scared him. He asked to hold Rit's hand. She gave it to him with a smile. When she asked if he was still afraid, he confessed the truth. He only wanted an excuse to hold her hand. Rit blushed, whispered she loved him, and he told her back, saying her smile made him feel it every time. She hugged him tight, asking if he'd always stay. Red told her he couldn't promise forever, since he still wanted to grow stronger and adventure with her, but he promised he'd always return. Just then, a knock shattered the moment. Red opened the door, and there was Dr. Newman, soaked by the storm, carrying young Tanta on his back, bleeding and barely breathing. At Red's house, Dr. Newman explained that Al had been struck on the head by a flying stone, most likely thrown by the strong winds. Not long after, Al stirred awake, groaning, and then his voice cracked with urgency. He said Demi had barged into his home and attacked his parents, swinging around a strange weapon. Shaking, Al begged Red to help. Red wasted no time. He rushed to Al's home, and as he pushed through the door, he saw both parents lying flat on the floor. Luckily, they were still breathing. Red checked closer and told Dr. Newman it looked like Demi had used some old childhood charm, and that had kept the damage from turning fatal. Still, the scene made it clear. Things could have ended much worse. Demi, the son of Tap Turn, had disappeared after the attack. Down in the Southwest District, whispers were spreading that the guards themselves were shielding Demi. None of them spoke up, and the silence was boiling into anger. The incident had already turned Al's parents into symbols of protest in South March. For safety, they were moved into the mansion of a rich guild patron, with Rit personally helping to care for them. Later that day, during a meal at Red's house, Al looked across the table at Rit and asked if she could train him in swordsmanship. Rit agreed, though a little hesitant, and began teaching him the basics. As Red came in carrying tea, he noticed Al's eyes burning brighter than before. He smiled, pointing out that thanks to Rit, Al looked happier already. Rit admitted she had never trained anyone before and worried she might pass down something wrong. She recalled her old master's words, that holding a weapon wasn't enough, because real strength came from how you think. Rit said she wasn't sure she could teach that, but Red reassured her calmly. She reached over, held his hand, and thanked him softly. The mood broke when Gons and Noah stormed in with bad news. Guards had taken Al away with no reason given. Red and Rit went straight to investigate, and at the garrison they came face to face with Captain Mohan. He admitted he ordered Al brought in for questioning. His reasoning was dark. He suspected Demi might already be dead, murdered by someone in South March. Worse, one of his own soldiers had also been killed. Rumors were circling, some even whispering that Bloody Mary had been seen, though no one could prove it. Captain Mohan said the case looked too clean, too calculated, and though plenty of theories floated around, they lacked any evidence. Red stepped in, pointing out how much this resembled past drug incidents, strange substances that warped people's blessings. Mohan nodded, saying he agreed, but reminded them there wasn't anyone in Zoltan with appraisal skills strong enough to uncover the truth. Back at home, Rit threw herself into training Al, acting as his sparring partner. During a break, Al asked bluntly why someone as strong as Red would ever leave adventuring. Red chuckled, then told him he never cared to be a great hero, he just liked the life he had now. Far away, Ruti was in the middle of another mission. She cornered a drug dealer and managed to capture him, but before he could be questioned, his body exploded, taking his life instantly. Rit, watching from the shadows, wondered why anyone would waste their own men like that. Soon, more enemies appeared, but Danan arrived in time, crushing through the fight. He explained the hero's party had sent him to find Gideon. Rit pressed him, asking if he planned to drag Red back, but Danan shook his head. He said he wouldn't, not anymore. Before leaving, though, he warned her not to expose his presence in South March. Later that night, Rit confessed her worries to Red. She said she wasn't sure how long they could hold on to this quiet life together. Red wrapped his arm around her, soothing her fears, and she kissed him deeply. She told him she wanted to stay by his side forever. The next morning, Red and Rit took Al to a weapons shop so he could choose a proper blade. On the way home, Red overheard shouts from the streets. Protests were flaring again, crowds gathering in South March, voices filled with rage. At the center, leading them, was Oliver, an old familiar face. Red narrowed his eyes and decided he had to speak with him. Meanwhile, the hero's party was locked in battle with demon forces. Their leader ordered the group to search the ruins for weapons left behind by the demon lord. In a quiet moment, she admitted to herself she wondered what Gideon was doing now. The episode ended with Tisa returning, her face serious. She reported that they had discovered an airship. The party boarded it quickly, preparing to set off. Their leader, staring out into the storm, whispered softly that there was somewhere she wanted to go, but as the hero, she couldn't. Red finally got that double bed set up, and after laying down, he called Rit over to join him. She slid in without hesitation, and with that little smirk of hers, she started unbuttoning his shirt. Red caught her hand, kissed her slow, and started unbuttoning hers too. The vibe was heating up, but then a door creaked outside. Red figured Al was probably just up for water, so he told Rit they better leave it for another night. They pulled the brakes and knocked out side by side. Next morning, the streets were packed, and in the middle of the crowd was a cloaked figure. Danon thought he finally had his target, but when the hood dropped, it was Rit playing her game with location magic. She laughed it off, reminding them they could track a spot but never know who's faking it. They swung at her out of rage, but she shut them down like it was nothing. Back at Red's place, Al sat tense on a chair while guards stood watch. Outside, that same shady man who sold him out last time showed up, spitting accusations. He said Rit tricked them, though she still helped their plan. He went to strike, but another figure stopped his hand cold, claiming Al was meant to be Southmarch's new hero. They dragged him off to Big Hawk, better known as Guller, the man with a plan. Big Hawk laid it out. He said he wasn't from Zoltan, and neither was Al, so they should rise above the council together. His ace card was a drug called Divine Blessing Author Bimel, cooked up from Dimple's craft. Blessings usually chained people from birth, but this drug rewrote the script. Big Hawk admitted his old blessing was Torture Master, which he hated, but the drug gave him a second life. He called it the Future. Meanwhile, Maya and Mew were in the middle of protests, searching for Oliver. Maya bumped heads with a thug, but Albert came through, cutting in to save her. Later, Big Hawk stood tall before a roaring crowd, calling the council useless and accusing Red of being a criminal tied to Captain Mohan. He hyped the people, saying outsiders would never be protected, and promised a new Zoltan built under him. The guards cracked under pressure, admitting they'd hidden truths. Big Hawk twisted the story further, saying Demi had been forced into drugs and ended up with 2 blessings. He claimed if anyone killed him, they'd grow stronger faster. Al was torn, but he stood his ground. He refused to kill. Another man pulled a weapon, but Red stormed in, pulling Al out of danger. Night fell, and Red gave Al medicine to dull the drug's side effects. Soon, more strangers showed up, accusing Red of being Red's partner in crime. Not long after, Big Hawk and Albert rolled in. Albert clashed with Red, and Red noticed odd markings on his weapon. Then Big Hawk dropped the truth. He wasn't just a man anymore. A demon had his body. He bragged about giving power through contracts, planning to run Zoltan like his own empire. Albert shouted back that all he wanted was unity to fight demons. He claimed he signed his life away to battle Dimple's forces, and urged Red to join him. Before it went too far, Valentine appeared, warning Albert not to get cocky. Still, Albert attacked again, but Red countered and sliced his hand clean, telling him straight, "Muscle alone doesn't make a hero." Outside, the mob wanted blood, chanting for justice, but Al stepped forward, voice shaking but steady, saying the real enemy was the demon hiding in plain sight. He said he forgave Demi, and spilling more blood would just make new enemies. His words cut through the noise, and slowly the crowd cooled down and walked away. Days later, Red and Rit caught a quiet moment together. Rit asked if he was happy, and if he regretted not taking Albert's path. Red grinned, saying his happiest life was right there with her, running their shop. Rit smiled, saying the others out there surely knew he'd always stay true. Elsewhere, a prisoner named Beryl got exposed as the assassin Shiska, 110. In another cell, Albert sat brooding, while a shadow offered him a fresh contract. When morning came, Red decided it was time to leave town for a bit. Rit teased that he was starting to sound like a real adventurer again. Al said he was glad to roll with them, while Rit added that thanks to Al's speech, the protests died down and peace had settled back. That night, far away, the hero's party kept moving. Ruti raised her blade, mirroring the stance Albert once had, and braced herself for the battles still waiting. At the hero's camp, Ares was already heated, and as usual, he was crying about how Shisandan had jacked their supplies. Right then, Tise cut through his whining and told him flat out that both she and Ruti had bounced, leaving the party behind. Still, Ares wasn't having it, because he kept saying the Demon Lord couldn't be beaten without his so-called sacred weapon. But Tise just shrugged, and with a cold tone, she reminded him that Ruti was the hero, so she'd handle it one way or another. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, Rit was sliding through another camp, and she moved quiet until she slipped inside Rudi's tent. As she looked around, she spotted Rudi's belongings, and instantly, she started wondering why Ruti would just leave them behind. Right after that, the scene jumped to Ruti herself, and now she was on the move with Tise at her side. At a different camp, Theodora was out there flexing, bragging about how she killed some massive beast. Maria clapped for her, and with a grin, teased her for being nothing more than a regular adventurer now. Soon after, Oliver, Maya, and Prithvi rolled up, and with serious faces, they pointed out that ever since Albert left, Zoltan had no real strength left. They remembered how Albert once stepped up during the Devil's Blessing mess, but since that day, everything had only gone downhill. Later that night, Ruti and Tisa were resting, and with the fire crackling, Tisa decided to open up. She admitted she used to run with the Garland Assassin Guild, spying and moving in the shadows. But then she leaned forward, saying now her loyalty was to Ruti. She asked why Ruti was really heading to Zoltan, and Ruti gripped a small vial tight, saying she heard there was a special medicine there. That vial, according to her, was the only thing giving her hope right now. Back in Zoltan, Red's shop was struggling because the townsfolk were griping hard about the brutal winter. Nobody wanted to step outside, and because of that, Red started worrying that his place might end up empty. But right away, Rit spoke up, saying they needed to whip up something folks could actually use in the cold. She mentioned hand warmers.
Say Garland, assassin.
You know, your blessing won't level up until you slay a foe.
And just like that, Red remembered an old method he had picked up before. He thought it could actually work, and Rit, smiling, told him to go for it. The very next day, Red got to work, and soon he was handing out samples to Dr. Newman, Gons, and Storm. Later that night, when he came back home, Rit asked how his day went. Red, looking lighter, told her it went smooth. And as the snow started falling, the two of them sat on a bench outside, sipping the silence and enjoying the calm winter air. Far away, Ruti and Tisa kept traveling, and this time, Tisa dressed Ruti in a disguise and started calling her Root, while she called herself Prefa. Later, after they came back from a village, Ruti carried a weapon in her hands. She explained that she healed the sick with her blessing, and because of that, the villagers gifted her the blade out of gratitude. Not long after, things heated up again. A knight named Otto blocked her path, demanding coin if she wanted to pass. When she refused, he swung, but Ruti tossed him straight into the river like he was nothing. Later, Otto crawled back out, dripping wet and shivering. That's when Red happened to be walking by. Otto, still arrogant, tried the same scam again, asking for cash for his training. Red, already fed up, cracked him with one clean punch and sent him flying back into the water. This time, his underwear floated away with him. Later, Ruti and Tisa sat down, and as they talked things over, Tisa warned about a certain adventurer. She had spotted him carrying the Nightfall weapon, and she felt he couldn't be trusted. Ruti agreed, saying straight up they couldn't rely on him. Back in Zoltan, Red's shop had another twist. A green dragon named Shuru showed up, politely asking for help. Around that same time, Kururu pulled through with a gift, explaining it wasn't sickness, but a strange curse hitting strong fighters. Red mixed up a special remedy and told her to take it before bed. Elsewhere, Ruti tracked down Goodwin, the same guy who once betrayed Al by handing him over to the guards. This time, she didn't play nice. She told him to start making more of the special drug, and if he refused, he knew what was coming. Goodwin caved in, saying yes, but at the same time, he begged her not to throw herself into more danger. By the next morning, Tisa reminded Ruti that Goodwin needed treatment, but she also warned her not to use her hero powers out in public. With that said, the two of them headed into Zoltan to look for medicine. At that same moment, Gons was chilling at Red's shop, talking about a rumor that somebody had just broken out of prison. Then, the bell rang, and the door swung open. Ruti and Tisa stepped inside, and right then, Rit turned her head, saw Red, and her whole face lit up. Pure relief, pure happiness, nothing held back.
Well, what's done is done.
Gons leaned in and asked if the girl with Red was really his younger sister. Right after, Tip cut in and asked if Red's real name was Garden. The truth spilled. Before the Jolta mess, Red had gone by Garden. Red looked a little lost, and then Gons told him to move along. Tip worried Gons might flip out, but Red brushed it off, saying Gons never cared much about their private lives anyway. Soon after, Tisa stepped forward and introduced herself, saying she had joined the hero party in Red's place. Ruti then asked if Red was living with someone. Red admitted yes, and that she happened to be the Princess of Logavia. Ruti immediately thought of Rit. Red explained that he had gone alone to dig up information on Dimple and the others. Ruti told him that Addison had spread word he ran away, which made Red tighten his jaw. He apologized to her for leaving without saying it all properly. Ruti told him she planned to remove Ishi from the party so they could all travel together again. She admitted the group had been off balance without him. Gons hadn't managed his work right, Diamond had gone searching for him, and Mandela had left the party thinking he was already dead. Red, hearing this, said he figured they were doing fine without him, but he still insisted he couldn't come back. Ruti then dropped the line that shocked everyone in the restaurant. If that was the case, then she would stay with him instead. Not long after, Rit walked in. Red poured tea for everyone and asked why Ruti had come all the way to Zoltan. Ruti said first, to find him, and second, to meet someone else, already checked off. When she asked what he planned to do now, Red told her straight. He was running the shop with Rit. Ruti answered coolly, saying not to worry, because she would remain in Zoltan too. Later, Red and Rit took a walk, leaving Tiese to cover the shop. Red led Ruti to a spot from the old days, and they shared drinks under the sky. Ruti said after all those years, it felt good to just sit and spend time like this. A little girl ran up and complimented Ruti, amazed at how she dried her body instantly after a bath. Red chuckled and agreed. Afterward, Ruti apologized to Red for the chaos back at the temple. Red reassured her that he was only glad she could interact with people more freely now. He told her she was kind and dependable, and that he was proud of her. Ruti admitted if she had one wish, it would be for this day to never end. Elsewhere, Albert and his group were on the move. Albert claimed he was certain Ruti was in Zoltan. Jody reminded him that without him, they would never have tracked the hero's location in the first place. Banvas mentioned buying him a prosthetic arm, but Albert just reflected on a man strong enough to be a champion who chose not to. He said people should live according to their blessings. Thodar pushed back, saying dreams and a future mattered too, and people shouldn't be chained only by blessings. Back at Red's house, the group gathered to sip honey wine. Ruti asked if she could stay with him. Red reminded her they were older now. She laughed and said then she'd just come back with Gons next time. Tiese, sipping her drink, mentioned that she kept records everywhere and was known as an expert at gathering information. Later that night, Ruti drifted into a childhood memory. She remembered being sent to save a child from a wolf-like monster. She had almost been killed, but Red showed up just in time, cut the beast down, and apologized for being late. For her, Red had always been her protector. She admitted her body could withstand almost anything, but what really made her happy was remembering those days together. Tiese, watching quietly, remarked that Ruti no longer had her full blessing, only remedies to keep her steady. Ruti then confessed something heavy. Back in their adventuring days, she had been jealous of Red. He could laugh, cry, and get angry freely, while she couldn't. She admitted she never wanted to be a hero. She wanted a normal life like his. Tiese thought to herself that maybe only Red could save Ruti. She doubted if it was possible, but she also reminded herself that just as Red once saved Princess Rit, maybe she too could find a way to save Ruti. And with that thought, the mission to protect the hero truly began.
To be at or near the wall at the world's.
Part of the hero's blessing is that it prioritizes.
The talk started with Ruti's blessing. Someone asked if, once her hero blessing weakened, the drug inside her would still stick. Red admitted he didn't know. Then the name Goodwin came up. Red asked if the guy was still in the Elven room. Tiese worried Ruti might be angry with him for breaking Goodwin out of prison, but Red said he couldn't say for sure. Tiese mentioned she needed to grab some tools for Goodwin at the port. Red told her to leave that part to him and just head to the Elven room. He promised to follow soon after. Meanwhile, Albert and Ares showed up at Sultan's port, looking for a place to crash. Ares offered to find them a house. While he walked off, Bui passed through the crowd. Around the same time, Red was also at the port, hunting for tools for Goodwin, when he suddenly ran into Danon. Danon greeted him warmly, saying it had been a long time. Right then, Albert and Ares showed up too. Albert asked why Red had left the party. Red explained that, as Aring may have told them, he wasn't strong enough anymore. Danon shook his head, saying Red was still strong and the party needed him, but Red stood firm, saying he had no plan to leave Zoltan. Danon sighed and said he'd stay in Sultan for a while to see how Red was living before deciding anything. Red agreed, but he also warned him Ruti was in Sultan too. Danon, caught off guard, agreed to help him protect her. Red noticed Danon's right hand was missing and asked what went down. Danon promised to explain later. Eventually, it came out that his hand had been cut off during a ship attack. Elsewhere, things got messy. A fake Danon showed up with Ares. This version still had both hands. He pushed Ruti for answers, while Ares declared he would tear her away from Red. Ares even smashed Red's house and destroyed his bed. The story made it clear. There were two Danons, the real one, missing his right hand, standing with Red, and the fake one, working with Ares. Back with Red and the real Danon, they tracked the trail and realized the fake Danon and Ares were heading toward the mountains on a summoned dragon. Red muttered that nobody in Sultan should have the juice to summon a dragon, which meant they were likely gunning for the hero's spot. Danon urged Red to go ahead while he followed behind. Soon, Red reunited with Rit and Tiese, telling them about meeting Danon at the port. Rit admitted she had already seen him earlier, but kept it quiet since Danon didn't want to mess up Red's peace. Red asked if she noticed anything odd, but she shook her head. Red explained the difference. The real Danon had lost his right hand, while the fake one had both. That meant Shasander was wearing Danon's face.
Oh, where is the hero?
Hearing that, Rit decided to pick up her sword again, swearing she'd fight Sandal and avenge her old master Gauze. Red eventually made it to the elven ruins. The halls were dark and broken, covered in dust, and inside, he found an old Hero Administration Authority plaque. Deeper in, he found Goodwin. Red demanded to know where Ruti was. Goodwin tried to play dumb until Red forced him to call out, and Ruti finally appeared. Red showed her a bottle, explaining it could suppress blessings, though it might be poisonous. He told her he only wanted to protect her because she was precious, and if she wanted to quit being a hero, he would back her choice all the way. Ruti, touched, admitted she had made mistakes, but asked if he could forgive her. Red reassured her it was her life, and she could live it her way. Meanwhile, Ares and the fake Danon were still searching for the ruins, frustrated at not finding the underground entrance. Soon after, the real Danon arrived with Red and Ruti. Together, they confronted Goodwin again. Ruti explained that something new was stirring inside her, a new blessing she didn't yet understand. Goodwin admitted he knew nothing about it. Out of nowhere, plague-like creatures started multiplying, spilling across the ruins. Red warned that as long as the spell stayed active, they'd never stop. But Ruti didn't hesitate. She wiped them out in one strike. Later, the group met someone who claimed only Ruti could defeat the Demon Lord. But Ruti shut that down, saying her days as a hero were finished. She just wanted to live as a normal person. Ares exploded with rage, turning his blade toward Red. But before he could land a blow, Ruti struck him down and warned him, if he ever tried to kill her brother again, she'd kill him instead. Nearby, Shasander, still hiding behind disguises, overheard it all. Later, he revealed himself again, slipping Ares a potion. Ares refused it, healing himself with his own magic instead. Then the real truth dropped. Boy was actually an Asura demon, a creature with no blessing at all. Boy admitted it and offered Ares a deal. In the elven ruins, a first hero weapon was buried. If Ares handed that weapon to Ruti, maybe she would finally agree to travel with them. When the truth about Ares finally came out, the heroes moved in on his spot. Danon clashed with Bui, but with Ares backing him up, Bui cut him down badly and revealed his real face. He was Shisandan all along. From there, they reached the chamber holding what they were after, 5 sword blades, siblings of the sacred sword Ruti carried. Just like her, these blades were leftovers from the very first hero's age. Soon, Red's group caught up, but the enemy didn't wait. They attacked, trying to kill Red, and twist the sacred swords into tools to drag Ruti back into her old role. Right then, Theodora showed up too, striking at Ruti in a desperate attempt to shove her back onto the hero's path. Rit wasn't having it. She called it out, saying the hero's blessing didn't mean the world had only one savior. She shouted that it was the will of the people that made somebody a hero. Anybody, not just Ruti. With that, the fight turned heavy. Red, Ruti, Rit, Tisi, and Goodwin all rose up together, pushing back against their enemies. Red clashed hard and landed the final blow on Ares, killing him. But Shisandan played his trick. He lured Ruti into touching one of the sacred blades. The moment her hand hit the weapon, her blessing snapped tight around her, forcing its compulsions onto her. Under that crushing urge, she turned and swung her sword straight at Red. At the last second, Tisa threw herself forward, taking the strike before it could cut him down. Red pushed through the chaos, knocked the blade out of Ruti's grip, and finally broke the sacred sword's hold over her. She stumbled free, but the moment was heavy. Her old hero's blessing was gone, stripped clean. As the dust settled, Theodora stepped forward. Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of finally seeing the truth, she used her magic to heal Tissi's fatal wound. With that act, everyone in the room had to face it.
Brother, what? Did understand us.
The hero's blessing wasn't what made someone a hero. It was the choices they made, the life they decided to live, that really counted. After all that madness, Ruti and Tisa moved with Red back to Zoltan. There, Ruti carried a new blessing, one that kept her old hero's power locked down. She could breathe again, no longer chained to the role she never asked for. Meanwhile, Red fully embraced the life he wanted. He didn't just see Rit as his partner in the shop anymore. He openly claimed her as his wife. Together, they built a calm life, where the biggest drama was the occasional emergency Ruti stepped in to fix. For once, peace didn't feel like a dream. It was real. Out in the wilds, though, the story wasn't done. Yarandrala crossed paths with Godwin, who filled her in on where Red and Ruti had ended up. Hearing that, she turned her steps towards Zoltan too, ready to rejoin the people she once fought beside.